Hello, I'm Ollie and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I've got a small book haul for you, including a new favourite book for my collection. So a fairly small book haul for you today. I've got 9 books to go through with you, plus some comics. But one of those 9 books is one that I was so absolutely delighted to receive, I couldn't wait to show it to all of you. Now, naturally, I'm going to save that book till the end because that's how the professionals do it. So you'll have to wait and see whether you're as wowed by it as I am. Right, let's go through the other ones first then. So the first is, my last book haul video kind of focused on books I bought for the challenge I'm doing in July, where I'm going to be reading books suggested by viewers rather. So the first book I've got here is another one of those, and this looks absolutely fantastic. So this was suggested by the channel Williams Library. It's The Shake by Maggie Davis. Look at that cover. It's so fantastically kind of late 70s. So you've got the Shake character on the cover there. You've got like a female terrorist with a submachine gun and another lady in her bikini. And the blurb of this does sound absolutely brilliant. What's it like to be a 23-year-old and the richest man in the world, to be torn between a Western education and an Arab inheritance, to leave the confines of the East for the loose living of the West? The coffers of the Emirate of Ras Mani are overflowing with millions of petrodollars. So the old traditionalist emir has decided to send his grandson, Abdullah al-Asmari, to the States to buy a few banks. But the 23-year-old sheikh is unprepared for Hollywood high life, for nymphettes, wild parties and undiluted decadence. Abdullah comes of age in a dazzling, lavish adventure by the author of Robble's Gold. I'm quite intrigued by Robble's Gold as well. That does sound quite fun. But yeah, definitely a very kind of late 70s, early 80s view of the Arab world. So yeah, this came out in 1977 originally. So yes, interested to see what that is like. It does look fun. Next up then, a book which looks really good, and it's got some great blurbs on it. So this is a new a new collection of short horror stories that came out just this week. The reason I got it in particular is because whilst I don't know the author, whose name is Vanessa Santos, we do have a friend in common from my old days of book blogging, and that friend is one of the people the book is dedicated to. So when I discovered that, I had to get it. So anyway, it's called Make a Home of Me. And as I said, it's by Vanessa Santos. It's got a great blurb on the back from Lucy Rose, author of The Lamb, which is a book I absolutely loved. Chilling, haunting and unflinching, Vanessa Santos is an astonishing writer, and I'm utterly obsessed with this collection of unsettling short stories. So let me read you the blurb on the back of this one. Peer through the keyhole and you'll see a mysterious dinner party with a sickening twist, a woman's intense new relationship with a single father and his strangely shy daughter, the rediscovered journals of a famous artist with a singular obsession who disappeared in suspicious circumstances, a family driven to desperation by the impossible appearance of nonsensical notes, and a seemingly happily married couple driven to the edge of despair by a neighbour's crying baby. So that does sound really, really good. Definitely looking forward to reading that one. Next up, a few thrillers I got in my favourite charity shop. So in the town I live in, there's a wonderful charity shop called Sold, which is run by and staffed by people with like special educational needs. So it's just got a fantastic vibe to it, this shop. It's really like chaotic inside in terms of how everything is arranged. So many charity shops nowadays seem to me, certainly in the UK, to be quite sterile and boring. Whereas Sold is just wonderfully eclectic in terms of all the stuff they have in there. And they always have a good selection of books. A lot of charity shops I find just have like new books, like books that were bestsellers like 2 years ago. Whereas Sold has loads of different stuff. And I have to say that the comedian, now I've forgotten his name. Robin something, who does the Infinite Monkey Cage with Brian Cox. I'm forgetting everyone's names. Robin Ince, that's his name. He's a great fan of that shop as well, and he dedicated his latest book to the manager of the shop. So anyway, I picked up 3 things from there the other day. So I've got Bolt by Dick Francis. So I'm going to be reading a Dick Francis book this month. Haven't read any Dick Francis for ages, but as you can tell from the cover, he writes thrillers set in the world of horse racing. Let me read you the blurb of this one. Jockey Kit Fielding's patron, Princess Cassilia, is in trouble. Her invalid husband is being threatened by a ruthless business partner who wants to use the firm to manufacture arms. At the same time, some of the princess's best horses are being killed, shot by a bolt. The only person the princess can turn to is Kit, but he has problems of his own. His fiancée Danielle has taken a shine to another man, and his old feud with Maynard Aladec, racing steward and hereditary enemy of the Fieldings, might lose him his licence to race. Between riding winners and trying to save his impending marriage, Kit has to somehow find out and stop whoever is slaughtering the horses. But as he's about to discover, the killer has more than horses in his sights. So that does sound pretty thrilling, and certainly set in the world of horse racing. And then I also got a couple of books by Will Smith, who's an author. I think I've read probably 2 or 3 Wilbur Smith books over the years. So he's an author who came from. Did he come from? I think he lived in South Africa, but wasn't born in South Africa. I think he was born in either Zambia or Zimbabwe. But yeah, typically wrote books like adventure-type thrillers set in Africa. So I got 2 of his, which have wonderful. These are kind of wonderful, like late 70s editions, as you can see. So I got The Sunbird, which is a bit of a chunky one. This is like 500 pages, and Eagle in the Sky. So let me read you the blurbs of this one. Another magnificently entertaining and imaginatively portrayed novel of high adventure by the author of When the Lion Feeds. From the drama and excitement of modern Africa, big game hunts, terrorists, intrigue and merciless bushmen, the chief characters are projected into the battles, romance and tragedy of their Carthaginian past. I don't know what a Carthaginian past is. Intriguing. Anyway, it's got a cool cover with a guy with a load of bullets. So that's pretty adventurous. And then Eagle in the Sky, I think, sounds quite interesting because it's about Israel, and we tend to forget nowadays, particularly since the African National Congress took over South Africa, took over ruling South Africa from the apartheid regime, that back in like the 70s in particular, I think, South Africa and Israel were quite closely allied. They kind of, supported each other. So let me read you the blurb of this one anyway. In Israel's nerve-snapping struggle for survival, David Morgan's brilliance as a Mirage pilot is his passport to Deborah's love. But terrorism and tragedy spawned by the violence which drew them together threatens to tear them apart. From savage air fights over the desert to hand-to-hand conflicts on a South African game reserve, this unforgettable story blends wild excitement with tender, sensual love. David and Deborah are each prepared to deny for the... tender, sensual love David and Deborah are each prepared to deny for the other's sake. So that does sound interesting, and as I say, an interesting book kind of historically, given the fact that South Africa is now one of the countries that is kind of most opposed to Israel, and indeed I think has made petitions to the UN about Israel at the moment. So yes, interesting anyway. Next up then, we have a book I got for the project where I'm buddy reading with my dad, his 12 favourite books. So this is the final book we're going to be reading for that, but I chanced across it and it was only £1, so I grabbed it even though I don't need it till December. So this is The Bomb Maker by Stephen Leather. It wasn't an especially large bomb. 10 years ago, Andrea Hayes was the best master bomb maker in the business. Young, beautiful and deadly, she was the favourite of her Irish Republican masters. Then it all went wrong. 5 children were killed when disruption was all that was intended. Devastated, Andrea turned away from her trade. Now, a new Andrea Hayes lives a quiet suburban life with her loving husband and young daughter, safe in the knowledge that her past is in another country. But then her daughter is kidnapped and the past comes knocking on her door. As Andrea gets blackmailed into returning to her craft and building a bomb that dwarfs any planted by the IRA, a faceless mastermind is working behind the scenes to pull off one of the most daring scams in world history. That does sound pretty fun, actually. That sounds entertaining. Another one, actually, that I got from Sold is this one, The Sussex Downs Murder by John Bude. So this is a Golden Age mystery novel, but set on the Sussex Downs, and I live on the Sussex Downs, or very close to the Sussex Downs. We can get onto them about kind of 5 minutes from the house. So this sounds, I don't know anything about this, but it sounds intriguing, and it's got a map at the start, which is always nice. So let me hold that up. So it's got a map of the local area, including the town that I live in. So let's read the blurb of this one. So this is from the British Library kind of mystery classics. Two brothers, John and William Rother, live together at Chalklands Farm on the beautiful Sussex Downs. Their peaceful rural life is shattered when John Rother disappears and his abandoned car is found. Has he been kidnapped, or is his disappearance more sinister? More sinister than being kidnapped? Connected perhaps to his growing rather too friendly with his brother's wife. Superintendent Meredith is called in to investigate and begins to suspect the worst when human bones are discovered on Chalklands farmland. His patient, careful detective method begins slowly to disentangle the clues as suspicion shifts from one character to the next. The classic novel from the 1930s is now republished for the first time with an introduction by the award-winning crime writer Martin Edwards. So yes, that looks like an entertaining read, and nice for me that it's got a local setting. Next up then, one that I got through from the publisher Flame Tree Press. So this is an advanced copy. Does it say when the book comes out? It comes out in September. So this is the new novel from the British horror writer Ramsey Campbell, who is absolutely fantastic. So this is called An Echo of Children. This is definitely an advanced copy. They've got like promotional material on the front there. They're saying it's going to be published in a gorgeous edition. This is not, I have to say, a gorgeous edition, but I'm sure the book is very good. So let's read you the blurb of this one. Coral and Alan Clarendon have just moved to Barmore with their young son Dean. Their house is a bargain. True, the local park is called Childer Field to commemorate the uncommon number of children who have died unnaturally in Barmore throughout history. But surely Dean will be safe with his parents. Even if the new friend only Dean can see isn't just imaginary, it's likely no threat to him. Alan's mother Jude is not so sure, but is she seeing problems where there are none? Could the house itself be a source of peril? And if she's alone in seeing the terrors that are gathering around Dean, at least from his parents, how desperate will her solution have to be? So that would sound suitably chilling, and it's nicely short as well. It's less than 250 pages, which I think is a good length for that kind of book. Right, let's get on to the comics then. So delightfully, when I got home from a long walk yesterday, all of the comics I subscribed to had been delivered. So I subscribed to 3 different titles, and they were all laying there on the doormat. So that was a very nice surprise to come back to. So I've got 4 from Commando Comics. So we've got The Mud, which is set in the First World War. Normally Commando Comics are set in the Second World War, so nice to have a First World War one. We've got Bill the Bowman, Wolf's Angel, and a nautical one, All Guns Firing. So those all look good. So Commando Comics, always entertaining. They are, each one is a complete story. I think they're 48 pages or something like that. They're really good fun. And then the other 2 things I get are 2000 AD and Judge Dredd the magazine. So here's the latest 2000 AD, which has Judge Dredd and Strontium Dog on the cover there. And this is the magazine, which has a Cadet Dredd cover. But these are always, I've read like Judge Dredd and 2000 AD since I was a kid. I used to read Commando when I was a kid as well, but it was 2000 AD that was my favourite comic back then. And I've really enjoyed getting back into them again recently. It's really nice to get something delivered. So 2000 AD is weekly, whereas the Judge Dredd one is monthly, and it's great to get a new comic delivered every week to read through. So yeah, really looking forward to those. Right, So I've also bought recently, and I don't normally talk about stuff I bought digitally on the channel, but Humble Bundle, the website, had a bundle of a comic I used to really enjoy. I haven't read it for literally decades, but I'm really looking forward to getting into it again. So it's Usagi Yojimbo by a creator called Stan Sakai, who I think both writes and draws it. So this is a what do they call it? Like furry animals? I can't remember what they call this type of story, but one of those comics where the characters all behave like humans but are animals. So this is about a rabbit samurai, and this series has been going. I think it's still being published. It was first published in the 80s, which is when I first read it. So it's been going for like 4 decades, still just written and drawn, I believe, by the same guy, which is really amazing. So this is a bundle of the comics. It's been published by different publishers over the years, because Stan Sakai, unlike with a lot of comics where like the publisher owns the rights to the character, Stan Sakai owns the rights to Usagi Yojimbo, and he's moved around through different publishers over the years. So I think when I used to read it, it was published by Fantagraphics. This is a Dark Horse collection, and I think looking on Wikipedia that they were publishing it for longest. So there are like dozens and dozens of issues in this collection. So yeah, really looking forward to getting back into this series again. I remember really enjoying it. Right, so that brings us to the most delightful book of the day. I'm so pleased to have received this. So this was a very kind gift from Eerie, who's a long-time viewer and friend of the channel. I have read this book. It was a lot of fun, but this edition is so absolutely glorious. I didn't have a physical copy of the book anyway. I don't think you can buy it physically anymore. You can certainly buy it digitally nowadays, but I don't think you can get it physically. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to show it to you and then I'll tell you why it's so special. So the book is Danger Dinosaurs by Richard Marston. So this is a hardback from the 1950s when it was first published. So you can see the cover there is really fantastic, and it's still in great condition for a book of its age. There's a slight tear on the cover of the back. Let me read you the blurb quickly. I'll read you some of the blurb actually, because it's a very long blurb, and then I'll tell you why I'm so delighted by it. So Owen Spencer would never have agreed to lead the time slip expedition back to the Jurassic period, the age of reptiles, had he foreseen the terrifying experiences in store for the small group making the expedition. Chartering the expedition was Dirk Masterson, a treacherous big game hunter whose alleged purpose was to take pictures of the enormous reptiles that roamed Jurassic times. Even when Marston smashed the Jeep into the force field, destroying the only protection that stood between the group and the lumbering beasts, Owen could not be sure it was an accident. So this is kind of like the reverse of Jurassic Park, in that it's humans going back to the Jurassic era and like hunting dinosaurs rather than dinosaurs being brought into our era. Anyway, it's a really fun book, but the thing that's really wonderful about it is that it's an early book by my favourite author of all time, Evan Hunter / Ed McBain. So whilst he's best known for writing crime fiction, some of his earliest books were actually science fiction, like this one. I've read a few of them. And they're all really fun, but it's great to see him kind of starting to hone his craft and exploring science fiction, which, you know, was a genre he completely moved away from. Most of his work is very much set in reality and is very kind of straightforward, I guess, in terms of its description of how stuff happens. So it's really interesting to see him exploring kind of science fiction style concepts, and just wonderful to have such a lovely original edition of one of his really early books. So thank you again, Eerie. I really do appreciate this. So that's the book haul for today. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've read any of the books or comics I talked about. And as always, thanks very much for watching. I hope you're safe and well out there. I hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.